The whisper shouldn't have been possible. Not from inside a closed coffin. Yet there it was again, faint but unmistakable, cutting through the funeral home's artificial silence. I stood frozen, my hand clutching the rosary I'd brought to place with my granddaughter. "Grammy, help." My heart stopped. That voice, Ivy's voice. I'd know it anywhere, having heard it countless times asking for bedtime stories or extra cookies. But Ivy was supposed to be dead. That's what Jasper and Delilah had told me 3 days ago, their faces painted with grief I now questioned. The whisper came again, weaker this time. I lurched forward, my arthritic fingers fumbling with the coffin's latches. They'd chosen a beautiful white casket for my 4-year-old granddaughter, with gold trim and pink silk lining. The kind of thing you'd expect from Delilah, always so concerned with appearances. The lid resisted at first, then gave way with a soft creak. I gasped. Ivy lay there, bound in her favorite purple dress, her small chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. Her eyes fluttered open, glazed but alive. "Grammy," she whispered again, reaching for me with trembling fingers. My hands shook as I lifted her out, cradling her like I had when she was an infant. She felt lighter than I remembered Frielier. The funeral home's dim lighting revealed dark circles under her eyes and dried tears on her cheeks. "What did they do to you, sweetheart?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "Mommy said I had to be quiet. She said it was a game." Ivy's words slurred slightly, but I didn't like it. It was dark and scary. The front door chimed. Footsteps echoed through the building, the funeral director returning from his lunch break. I grabbed my coat from the chair and wrapped it around Ivy, my mind racing. "We couldn't stay here. Mrs. Everhart." The director's voice carried down the hallway. "Is everything all right in there?" I held Ivy closer, feeling her small heart beating against my chest. "We're fine," I called back, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. "Just saying goodbye. Take all the time you need." Ivy's fingers clutched my blouse. "Grammy, I'm scared." "Don't be, baby. Grammy's got you now." I kissed her forehead, tasting the powder they'd used to make her look dead for the viewing. My son and his wife had planned to bury their own daughter alive. The thought made my stomach turn. My phone buzzed, a text from Jasper. "Mom, where are you? The service starts in an hour." I didn't reply. Instead, I moved toward the room's side exit, grateful I'd insisted on this private viewing time. My car waited in the back lot, and I had maybe minutes before someone came looking. "We're going on a little trip," I told Ivy, trying to keep my voice steady. "But first, I need you to tell me everything. Everything about this game Mommy and Daddy made you play." Ivy's next words chilled me to the bone. They said the new baby needed more room. That heaven would be better for me. She paused, her small body trembling. But I heard them talking about the insurance money too. The pieces clicked into place. Delilah's difficult pregnancy with their son. The recent financial troubles Jasper thought he'd hidden from me. The rushed funeral arrangements. My own flesh and blood had tried to murder their daughter for money. I started the car, my mind already mapping out our next moves. They'd chosen this funeral home for its reputation of discretion. Now that same privacy would buy us the time we needed to disappear. "Rest now, sweetheart," I whispered to Ivy as she drifted off in the back seat. "Grammy's going to make everything right, and God help anyone who tried to stop me." The motel room's flickering light cast shadows across Ivy's sleeping face as my phone buzzed for the 20th time. Jasper's name flashed on the screen again. I silenced it, remembering the last conversation we'd had 3 weeks ago, before all this madness started. "Mom, you need to stop hovering," he'd said, standing in his marble kitchen, adjusting his tie with manicured fingers. "Ivy's fine. Kids get quiet sometimes." "She's not eating, Jasper." She flinches when Delilah comes near her. I'd reached for his arm, but he'd stepped away, like my touch might wrinkle his perfectly pressed suit. "You're imagining things. Delilah's an excellent mother." The memory made my hands shake as I checked Ivy's temperature. The drug they'd given her was wearing off, but she still felt too warm. I'd need to risk getting her to a doctor soon, one who wouldn't ask too many questions. My phone lit up again, this time with a text from Delilah. Please, Viola. We're worried sick. Just tell us where you are. I almost laughed. Worried sick? After what they'd done. A knock at the door made me freeze. Through the thin walls, I heard a familiar voice. Vi? It's Miriam. Let me in. I hesitated, then checked the peephole. Miriam Blake stood there alone, her silver hair disheveled, holding a paper bag from the pharmacy. How did you find us? I asked through the crack in the door. You really think I wouldn't recognize your car at the Blue Pine Motel? I've known you 30 years. She pushed past me, setting the bag down. The whole town's looking for you too. There's talk of kidnapping charges. Kidnapping? My voice cracked. They tried to bury her alive, Miriam. I believe you. She glanced at Ivy, her expression softening. But you need a plan. Jasper's got the police convinced you had some kind of breakdown after Robert died. My late husband's name hit like a punch to the gut. He's using his father's death against me? He's using everything he can. Says you've been unstable, imagining conspiracies. Miriam pulled out children's Tylenol and fresh clothes from her bag. Delilah's playing the devastated mother perfectly. You should see her performance at the hospital with the new baby. The baby. In all this chaos, I'd almost forgotten about my newborn grandson. How is he? Healthy. They named him Finn. Miriam paused. Vi, they're painting you as the villain. You need proof of what they did. Ivy stirred, whimpering in her sleep. I smoothed her hair, noting the slight bruise on her temple where they must have struck her. Would pictures be enough? Maybe, but you'll need more. Miriam's eyes narrowed. What about the funeral home? There must be paperwork, something showing they knew she was alive. The director seemed clueless. But I remembered something. Delilah insisted on handling all the arrangements herself. Said she had a special understanding with them. That's worth looking into. Miriam checked her watch. I should go before someone notices my car. But Vi. She gripped my hand. Whatever you do, don't trust anyone else. Not even people who seem sympathetic. Money talks in this town, and Jasper's got plenty of it. After she left, I sat watching Ivy sleep, my mind racing. The bruise on her temple told one story, but we'd need more. Something concrete that would force Jasper and Delilah to face justice. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Everhart, this is Thomas from Peaceful Rest Funeral Home. There's something you should know about your son's payment arrangements. Please call when you can. I stared at the message, hope and dread mixing in my chest. Whatever Thomas knew might be the key to saving Ivy, or the trap that would destroy us both. Thomas from the funeral home met me behind the Quick Mart at midnight, his hands shaking as he passed me a manila envelope. Mrs. Everhart, after you left with Ivy, they came looking for these. He glanced over his shoulder. Your son offered me money to destroy them. Inside the envelope, I found forms with Delilah's elegant signature, dated weeks before Ivy's death. Prearrangements, payment schedules, and something that made my blood freeze, a medical waiver declining standard embalming procedures. They knew she'd be alive. I whispered. There's more. Thomas pulled out his phone, showing me security footage. Delilah entering the funeral home 3 days before the service, carrying a small medical bag. She said it was makeup for the viewing, but the sedatives. Of course. My phone buzzed, Jasper calling again. This time, I answered. Where's my daughter? His voice was steel wrapped in silk. Which one? The one you tried to bury alive, or the one you're pretending to grieve for? A pause. Mom, you're not well. We can get you help. I have the funeral home documents, Jasper. And the security footage. The silk disappeared. If you go public with this, you'll destroy everything. The business, our reputation. You tried to murder my granddaughter. It wasn't like that. His voice cracked slightly. We were desperate. The company's failing. The new baby's medical bills. Delilah's father threatened to cut her off unless we produced a male heir. The insurance money would have solved everything. I thought of Robert, how proud he'd been of our son. Your father would be ashamed. Don't you dare bring him into this. Jasper's composure slipped further. You have no idea what it's like, trying to keep everything together. Delilah's family, the social obligations, the expectations. So, you decided Ivy was expendable? Another pause. Where are you? Somewhere safe. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. Think carefully, Mom. His voice turned cold again. Who will believe you? The grieving grandmother, traumatized by her husband's death, kidnapping her supposedly dead granddaughter? I have friends in the police department, in the DA's office. Delilah's father owns half the judges in the state. Behind me, Thomas cleared his throat. Mrs. Everhart, there's something else you should see. He handed me another document, a life insurance policy on Ivy, taken out just months after her birth. The beneficiary wasn't Jasper or Delilah. It was their unborn son. They planned this from the beginning, I said, my hands trembling. From the moment they knew they were having a boy. My phone buzzed again, a text from Miriam. Police at your house. They're calling it a kidnapping. Get out now. I have to go, I told Thomas. Will you testify if it comes to that? He nodded slowly. My daughter's Ivy's age. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. As I drove away, another text came through, this time from Delilah. We can fix this, Viola.
Come home.
Bring Ivy. We'll say it was all a misunderstanding. I deleted it without responding. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd be too weak, too proper to fight back. But they'd forgotten something crucial. A grandmother's love is fiercer than any social obligation or financial pressure. In the rearview mirror, I saw police lights in the distance. They were coming, but I had what I needed now. Evidence, an ally, and most importantly, the truth about how long they'd been planning this. Ivy stirred in the back seat. Grammy, where are we going? Somewhere safe, sweetheart. And this time, we're going to make sure everyone knows exactly what Mommy and Daddy did. The truth would come out, even if it burned our family's perfect facade to the ground. Miriam's cabin sat deep in the woods, far from cell service and prying eyes. As I helped Ivy settle into the spare bedroom, my friend's expression darkened. The police searched my house this morning, she said, closing the bedroom door. Delilah's father was with them. That man gives me chills. Maxwell Monroe. The name tasted bitter. What did they want? To remind me that helping fugitives is a federal crime. Miriam's hands trembled as she poured coffee. Vi, there's something else. They're saying Robert's death wasn't an accident. The mug slipped from my grip, shattering on the floor. My husband's car accident had happened 6 months ago, just after he'd discovered discrepancies in Jasper's company accounts. They're suggesting I killed Robert and kidnapped Ivy because I'm unstable. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. They're trying to discredit me before I can expose them. A small voice came from the bedroom. Grammy, I'm thirsty. I started to move, but Miriam caught my arm. There's a detective asking questions about Robert's brake lines. They're building a case against you. Through the bedroom door, I could hear Ivy humming the lullaby I used to sing her. The same one I'd sung to Jasper as a baby. They won't stop until they destroy us both. Then destroy them first. Miriam pulled out her laptop. Remember that notebook you mentioned? The one with their plans? It's in Jasper's study. But the police are watching your house, yes. But not mine. She smiled grimly. And they don't know about Thomas from the funeral home. Or the security footage. A knock at the front door made us freeze. Through the window, I glimpsed a familiar car. Maxwell Monroe's silver Bentley. Back door, Miriam whispered. My car's ready. Take Ivy and... The door burst open. Maxwell stood there, his expensive suit immaculate, 2 police officers behind him. Viola. His smile never reached his eyes. You've caused quite a mess. How did you find us? He gestured to Miriam, who wouldn't meet my gaze. Everyone has a price. Even old friends. My heart stopped. Miriam. I'm sorry, Vi. Tears streaked her face. They threatened my grandson's custody case. I had no choice. Maxwell stepped closer. Where are the funeral home documents? Safe. I backed toward Ivy's room. Like the evidence about Robert's brake lines? His smile faltered slightly. Careful, Viola. Grief can make people imagine terrible things. Grammy? Ivy appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I don't feel good. The room spun as I noticed the empty medicine cup by Miriam's coffee pot. What did you give her? Just something to help her sleep, Miriam whispered. They promised they wouldn't hurt her. I caught Ivy as she stumbled, her small body burning with fever. Maxwell watched with cold calculation. You can't fight this, Viola. The police, the courts, they'll believe what we tell them. But there's another way. He pulled out his phone. Sign custody of both children over to Jasper and Delilah. Admit to your breakdown. We'll ensure you get treatment instead of prison. Ivy grew heavier in my arms, her breathing shallow. Whatever they'd given her was more than a sleeping pill. She needs a doctor, I pleaded. Sign the papers first. In that moment, I saw what I'd been missing. This wasn't just about money or social standing. This was about power, the power to break people, to make them bend. I thought of Robert, of his final phone call about the company's books, of Jasper's desperate ambition and Delilah's perfect facade. I'll sign, I said, watching Maxwell's triumphant smile. But first, let me tell you about the evidence I mailed to the FBI this morning. The smile vanished. Behind him, one of the officers shifted uncomfortably, and I realized the game wasn't over yet. It was just beginning. The emergency room's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as doctors worked on Ivy. I sat in the waiting room, Maxwell's words echoing in my head. The FBI won't find anything, but they might find Robert's real killer. Officer Sarachin approached, her badge glinting. She'd been one of the officers at Miriam's cabin, but something in her expression had changed. Mrs. Everhart. She sat beside me, keeping her voice low. I pulled the brake line report from your husband's accident. The cut was professional, not random. I gripped the armrest. Why are you telling me this? Because Maxwell Monroe made 3 calls to a burner phone the day before Mr. Everhart died. She glanced around. And because my sister lost custody of her kids to her wealthy ex-husband last year. Money talks in this town, but sometimes it says too much. The treatment room door opened. The doctor approached, his face grave. The sedative was mixed with something else. We're still running tests, but... My phone buzzed, Jasper. How's my daughter? I stepped away to answer. You mean the one you tried to kill, or the one you're poisoning now? Mom, stop being dramatic. Ivy just had a bad reaction to some medicine. His voice wavered slightly. Sign the custody papers. Let us fix this. Like you fixed Robert's brake lines? A long pause. Dad's death was an accident. Was it? Or did he find something in those company books? You don't understand what's at stake. Jasper's composure cracked. Delilah's father. He owns everything. The company, the house, our future. We just needed to give him what he wanted. A grandson instead of a granddaughter? Mom, please. He's watching the hospital. If you don't sign those papers. The line went dead. Officer Chin appeared beside me, her expression urgent. Mrs. Everhart, Maxwell just entered the building. And he's not alone. Through the emergency room windows, I saw Delilah getting out of a car, cradling baby Finn. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide her red-rimmed eyes. Your daughter-in-law looks scared, Chin observed. She should be. I watched Delilah hurry inside. She just had a baby, and her father's willing to poison a 4-year-old. Mrs. Everhart, the doctor returned. Ivy's asking for you. And... He hesitated. She's saying something about a notebook under Daddy's desk. Suddenly, Delilah's fear made sense. The notebook I'd mentioned to Maxwell, the one I hadn't actually sent to the FBI, must still be in Jasper's study. And it contained more than just their plans for Ivy. Officer Chun, I need a favor. I pulled out my phone, showing her Thomas's security footage. Get this to someone we can trust. And keep Maxwell away from Ivy's room for 10 minutes. She nodded, understanding. What about your daughter-in-law? I watched Delilah pacing near the entrance, clutching Finn like a shield. Send her to me. It's time she chose between her father and her children. The hospital intercom crackled. Code blue. Pediatric emergency. Medical staff rushed past as Chen slipped away, leaving me alone with my decision. In Ivy's room, monitors beeped steadily. She looked so small in the hospital bed, her favorite rabbit clutched tight. On the chair beside her lay Delilah's designer handbag, forgotten in her rush to get help. Inside, I found her phone unlocked. On the screen, a draft email to the FBI sat unsent, detailing everything: Robert's murder, the insurance fraud, Maxwell's corporate crimes. Footsteps approached. I had seconds to decide: delete the evidence of Delilah's almost betrayal, or use it to drive the final wedge between father and daughter. The door opened. Delilah entered Ivy's hospital room alone, Finn cradled against her chest. Her mascara had run, leaving dark trails down her cheeks. They're going to kill her, aren't they? I held up her phone with the unsent FBI email. Like they killed Robert? She sank into the chair, trembling. I didn't know about Robert. Not until after. But Ivy. Her voice cracked. Daddy said it would be peaceful, that she wouldn't feel anything. And you believed him? I believed I didn't have a choice. She looked down at Finn. He owns everything. The house, the company, our future. When the prenatal test showed a boy. She stopped, choking back tears. The monitors tracking Ivy's vitals beeped steadily. Through the window, I saw Maxwell talking to hospital security, showing them papers, probably a court order. Your father's coming for both children, I said. Are you going to let him? Delilah's fingers tightened around Finn. He'll destroy us if I don't. He's already destroying you. I moved closer to Ivy's bed. Look at your daughter, Delilah. Really look at her. Ivy stirred, her small hand reaching out. Mommy? Something broke in Delilah's expression. She stood, about to step forward, when the door burst open. Maxwell entered, flanked by security and a woman in a suit. Child Protective Services, the woman announced. We have an emergency custody order for both children. Maxwell's smile was razor-sharp. It's over, Viola. The judge agreed you're unstable, a danger to these children.
No.
Delilah clutched Finn tighter. Daddy, you promise. Quiet, dear. His tone could freeze hell. The orderlies will help you hand over the baby. Officer Chen appeared in the doorway, but Maxwell held up a restraining order. The police have no jurisdiction here. This is a family court matter. I watched helplessly as security approached Ivy's bed. All our evidence, all our plans, none of it mattered against Maxwell's power and money. Then Ivy spoke, her voice surprisingly clear. Mommy, tell them about the special book. Maxwell froze. Delilah's eyes widened. The one under Daddy's desk, Ivy continued, with all the numbers and names. I saw the flash of fear cross Maxwell's face. The notebook, not just evidence of their plan for Ivy, but apparently something much bigger. Delilah, Maxwell warned, remember what's at stake. She looked at Ivy, then at Finn, then at her father. Years of manipulation and control played across her face. Mrs. Monroe, the CPS worker, stepped forward. Please hand over the baby. Delilah stood, walking toward her father. For a moment, I thought she'd surrendered. Then she turned to Officer Chen. I want to make a statement, she said, her voice shaking but firm. About Robert Everhart's murder. About the notebook. About everything. Maxwell lunged for her, but security grabbed him instead of us. In the chaos, I saw his mask finally crack, revealing the monster beneath. You ungrateful little. He stopped, composing himself.
Fine. Tell them.
But remember, that notebook implicates Jasper too. Are you ready to send your husband to prison? The room fell silent except for the steady beep of Ivy's monitors. Delilah looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. And then she handed Finn to Maxwell. The CPS worker moved toward Ivy's bed as Delilah fled the room, her sobs echoing down the hall. Maxwell's triumph was complete. I had failed. Failed Robert, failed Ivy, failed everyone. As they prepared to take my grandchildren, I realized this wasn't about justice anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about survival. And sometimes to survive, you have to be willing to burn everything down. I reached for my phone, my fingers hovering over a number I'd sworn never to call. Robert's brother. The FBI agent we'd cut ties with years ago over a family feud. Sometimes the devil you know is better than the one wearing your father-in-law's face. FBI agent Marcus Everhart arrived as Maxwell was loading Finn into his car. My brother-in-law hadn't aged well. Grief had carved deep lines around his eyes since Robert's funeral. That's far enough, Monroe. Marcus's badge glinted in the hospital parking lot lights. We have a warrant for those financial records your granddaughter mentioned. Maxwell's smile didn't waver. Agent Everhart, still bitter about losing the family fortune to your younger brother. Actually, Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm bitter about this. He played an audio file, Jasper's voice trembling. Dad found the offshore accounts. Maxwell said he'd handle it. The baby carrier slipped from Maxwell's grip. Officer Chen caught it before it hit the ground, whisking Finn to safety. Where did you get that? Maxwell's composure cracked. From me. Jasper emerged from the shadows, looking older than his years. I recorded everything after Dad died. I just couldn't face what I'd done. I stepped forward. You knew? All this time. I thought I could protect them another way. Jasper wouldn't meet my eyes. Keep playing along until I had enough evidence. But when Delilah suggested the insurance plan for Ivy, you let them try to murder your daughter. I didn't know they'd actually do it. His voice broke. I thought if I stalled long enough, but then I heard Ivy crying in the coffin. Maxwell lunged for his car, but Marcus was faster. As they grappled, something fell from Maxwell's jacket, a syringe, identical to the one that had poisoned Ivy. Evidence, Officer Chen said, bagging it. Plus the notebook your wife just delivered to the station, Mr. Everhart. Quite detailed about both the murder and the financial fraud. Delilah appeared in the hospital doorway, holding Ivy's hand. Our eyes met across the parking lot. No words needed. She'd chosen her children over her father's empire. You ungrateful parasites, Maxwell spat as Marcus cuffed him. I gave you everything. No. Jasper's voice was quiet. You took everything. My father, my daughter, my soul. He turned to me. Mom, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. You're right. I watched Chen load Maxwell into a patrol car. You don't, Grammy? Ivy's small voice cut through the tension. Can we go home now? Home. Not the mansion Maxwell had bought them. Not the perfect facade they'd maintained. Home was my small house by the lake, where Robert and I had raised Jasper, where Ivy had learned to walk. Your father has some explaining to do first, Marcus said, his tone professional despite everything. About Robert's murder, the company fraud, all of it. Jasper nodded, broken but somehow lighter. I'll tell you everything. And then, Delilah asked, still holding Ivy's hand. Then we rebuild, I said, taking Finn from Chen. Not the lies or the pretense. Something real. As police lights painted the night red and blue, I held my grandson close, watching my son being led away in handcuffs. Justice had come at a terrible price, one generation's sins cascading into the next. Mom, Jasper called back. The night Dad died, he said something. He said you were right about Maxwell all along. That's why he was coming to tell you about the accounts. The last piece clicked into place. Robert had been driving to my house that night, choosing truth over money, family over facade. Like father, like son, just too late to prevent the damage. Ivy tugged my sleeve. Grammy, I'm tired. Me too, sweetheart. I gathered my grandchildren close, feeling the weight of victory and loss. Let's go home. Behind us, Maxwell's empire crumbled into handcuffs and evidence bags, while ahead, the long road of healing beckoned. 6 months later, I sat on my lakeside porch, watching Ivy teach Finn to blow bubbles. The autumn leaves painted the water gold and crimson, like nature's way of turning the page. The newspaper on my lap carried Maxwell Monroe's sentencing, 25 years for Robert's murder, fraud, and attempted murder of Ivy. His empire had crumbled, taking down corrupt judges and officials with it. Officer Chun had been promoted for her role in the investigation. More bubbles, Grammy. Ivy called, her laughter carrying across the yard. The nightmares had mostly stopped now, though she still slept with her door open. Delilah appeared from inside, carrying coffee. She'd moved into the guest house after selling the mansion, using the money to start a foundation for children of domestic abuse. Jasper's hearing is tomorrow, she said quietly. I nodded. My son had pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for his testimony against Maxwell. The prosecutor had recommended leniency, citing his eventual cooperation and the years of manipulation he'd endured. Will you go? Delilah asked. I don't know. I watched Finn wobble on unsteady legs, reaching for his sister's bubbles. Sometimes forgiveness feels like betrayal. Mom? Jasper's voice startled me. He stood at the garden gate, thinner than I remembered, wearing an ankle monitor. Part of his pre-sentencing arrangement. The restraining order, I started, is still in effect, I know. He stayed outside the gate. I found something in Dad's old files. Something you should have. He placed an envelope on the fence post. Delilah retrieved it, her hands trembling slightly as she passed it to me. Inside was a letter, dated the day Robert died. My husband's familiar handwriting filled the page. Vi, you were right about Maxwell. About everything. I'm coming home to tell you the truth. To make things right. To save our son from what he's becoming. He never made it home, Jasper said softly. Because I told Maxwell he was coming. Ivy looked up at her father's voice. For a moment, she seemed torn between running to him and staying with Finn. She chose her brother, wrapping protective arms around him. I don't expect forgiveness, Jasper continued. But they deserve to know their father tried to do the right thing, in the end, like you did. The autumn wind stirred Robert's letter. I thought of all the choices that had led us here, the ones made from fear, from love, from desperate need for approval. Grammy, Ivy called again. Finn's getting sleepy. Go, I told Jasper. The hearing's tomorrow. We'll see. He nodded, understanding the weight of those words. As he turned to leave, Ivy suddenly ran to the gate.
Daddy.
Her small voice carried years of questions. Did you love us? Even when you were scared? Jasper knelt, keeping his distance but meeting her eyes. Every second. I just forgot how to show it, like Grandpa forgot sometimes.
No, sweetheart.
Grandpa remembered. That's why he was coming home. I gathered Finn from the grass, feeling Robert's presence in the way the baby gripped my finger, in Ivy's quiet strength, in the painful hope of redemption. Time for naps, I announced, ending the moment before it could break us all. Later, as my grandchildren slept, I sat with Robert's letter and a photo album. The last picture of our family together showed Jasper holding newborn Ivy, his face full of possibility rather than ambition. Sometimes healing doesn't mean forgetting. Sometimes justice isn't about punishment. And sometimes the hardest part of love is letting it change shape without letting it go completely. I placed Robert's letter in the album. Tomorrow would bring its own choices, its own chances for redemption. For now, the sound of my grandchildren's peaceful breathing was answer enough.
You are not going to be useful around the house, huh? Then why fucking stay if that is the kind of wife you are? I was left to sit there in stunned silence at what my mother-in-law had just said. His mother glared at me with this awful, seething look. We have Francisco, and we do not want you anymore. Really? Why are you always tired and never seem to get things done? Why is that? My sister-in-law, who never helps around the house, said to me in a bored voice, Francisco, this is too much. Don't you think your mother's and sister's words are going overboard? I'm doing my best too. When I sought help from my husband, he responded with a demeaning attitude. I agree with my mother and sister. I'm busy with work and I'm in trouble if you don't help with the chores. Besides, my relationship with the new part-time girl is progressing, and you're just baggage. Can you quickly pack and live somewhere else? As I was shocked by Francisco's words, I checked the reactions of the three. They all seemed to blame me. A rage I couldn't put into words welled up in my chest. I took a deep breath, calmed myself, and said, "I understand, I need some time." My in-laws, who had relied on me so much until now, were starting to fall apart. "My name is Michelle. I'm 32 years old. I am working and I spend my days doing my best in both my job and household chores. Nowadays, it's not uncommon for women to continue working even after getting married, but I truly love my job, and I'm still striving at the company I joined right after college." One morning, as I was getting ready for work, my husband approached with a pleading look. "Michelle, can you take care of this?" What I received from my husband's hand was a file crammed with receipts and bills. "This again. You should manage your cafe's finances properly," I said with a smile, to which my husband Francisco responded with a slightly spoiled face. Sorry, but I'm really bad at that." I met Francisco in an unusual way. I was drawn to him while he was working part-time at a cafe I frequented. After a few chats, we naturally began dating and eventually talked about marriage. Now, Francisco owns that cafe. However, contrary to how he runs the cafe, he's not good at paperwork and always asks me to handle the accounting. As I sighed, my mother-in-law chimed in. "Michelle, I suddenly feel like eating Chinese food tonight." "Sure, but could you rinse the rice a bit?" "Well, why don't you come home early and do it? Plus, Mia and the kids are coming this weekend, so we have to think about their meals." "All right, I got it." I nodded to my mother-in-law's request and hurriedly left the house. Before getting married, I was excited about my new life with Francisco, but he suggested, "My mum's lonely by herself now, so why don't we all live together in our big house?" So now I live with his mother. To put it lightly, she's not good at household chores. When we moved in, the house was a bit of a mess. After my father-in-law passed away, she started living on a pension, but she mostly spends it on eating out or taking out food. Francisco seems to think that housework is a woman's job, so it ends up being my full responsibility. Francisco's sister, Mia, occasionally brings her kids home. Every time she does, my to-do list grows, and I can't help but think, another chaotic weekend is approaching. Weekends are precious times to recover from the usual exhaustion. However, my sister-in-law's children would ask to play or complain about being hungry. I found myself preparing meals in the kitchen and also entertaining the children. Then my sister-in-law dropped a bombshell. "Michelle, I'm getting divorced and will be moving back here with the kids next month." Surprised, I was so shocked I momentarily lost words. "Really?" "Yes. Do you have something to say?" "No, I was just thinking it must have been hard. When are you moving?" "I want to move as soon as possible." Well, surprised that my sister-in-law and her children would be moving in, I thought that maybe she would help, and household chores would be more manageable. We had a normal relationship, but I hoped that this would bring us closer and she would help with the chores. I spent every day with a positive attitude. However, reality had other plans. Perhaps because she grew up with my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law seemed to live a life devoid of housework. She spent most of her time lounging on the sofa, watching TV, and always had some snack with her. Watching her, I realized her neglect of housework might have contributed to her divorce. Now, with the added responsibility of preparing meals for her children and making lunches for kindergarten, my workload increased and my free time diminished. I had hoped she would help, but it was very disappointing that it turned out to be a swing and a miss. Then there was a time when my work at the company suddenly became hectic. Every day I would start work early and do overtime. When I returned home exhausted, the room would be overflowing with things, with no space to even walk. Every time I came home and saw the scene, waves of fatigue would wash over me. On top of that, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law would complain. "Is dinner ready yet?" Or, "Why are you home so late?" When I couldn't manage household chores, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law would say things like, "Michelle, there's a mountain of laundry waiting. Don't slack off just because you're busy," in a cold manner. "Mother-in-law, I'm really trying my best," I thought, but before my sister-in-law could say anything, I often chose to remain silent. Michelle, are you standing up to your mother-in-law? That's a bit bold, but for the sake of the children, please try a little harder to make homemade meals, my sister-in-law said. If you have so much free time at home, why don't you help out once in a while? She continued. What? Doing household chores? Ha, ha. Francisco owns a store, so Michelle doesn't need to work, right? If that's the case, maybe you should try a little harder at home. Behind their words, I felt the pressure that I should be doing more. That night, at the peak of my stress, I decided to speak my mind to Francisco. I've been so busy lately, and neither my mother-in-law nor my sister-in-law are helping out with household chores, so it's really hard. Michelle, you're not speaking ill of our family, are you? Francisco's eyes sharpened a bit, and I braced myself. That's not what I mean, but it's hard for me to do everything by myself. If you helped out once in a while, things would be a little easier for me. I'm busy managing the store. It's different from a regular job. Housework is the wife's responsibility, right? Even so, a bit disappointed by his response, I sat and thought for a while. A good idea suddenly popped into my head. I had a brainstorming moment. Could this work? I silently pumped my fist. I immediately grabbed my smartphone, opened my favorite online shop, and started adding necessary items to the cart. After completing the purchase, I went to bed satisfied. A few days later, my new electronic household appliances, which would become my lifelines, were delivered to our home. The latest washing machine, a cleaning robot that cleans every corner of the room, and a rice cooker that cooks delicious rice without much effort. Each of them was a savior, making my daily life just a little bit easier and more enjoyable. As I was setting up the new washing machine, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law suddenly appeared with surprised expressions. Wait, Michelle, you got such a fancy washing machine? But the old one was still good, wasn't it? Smiling gently, I replied, the old one took a bit too long, and I heard this new one shortens the laundry time. Their gaze then shifted to the cleaning robot and the new kitchen appliances. See, I've also upgraded these, I said, showing them off a bit. All these things, cleaning robots and convenient cooking appliances. Michelle, come over here for a moment, my mother-in-law said. Inside the room, seeing the slightly surprised expressions of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, I smirked to myself. Francisco sat next to me, and the four of us began our discussion. Hey, why did you buy so many things? My mother-in-law raised her voice. Do you really need all these new appliances? Isn't it just because you want to make things a bit easier? She continued. Well, I thought it would be nice if things around the house could run a bit more smoothly, I replied, with a slightly troubled expression. But my mother-in-law chimed in. Relying too much on machines? Aren't we interrupting the sister-in-law waved her hand. But, Michelle, the appliances we had can still be used. Francisco is working hard managing his store. Maybe you should be more frugal. Francisco nodded in agreement with his sister. In a quiet voice, I murmured, Maybe you're right. There was a hint of anger in my mother-in-law's eyes. Are you even considering our household? I stumbled over my words. I really am, but I'm just a bit exhausted. My mother-in-law raised her voice. Enough! I can't believe you're our daughter-in-law. My sister-in-law, with a disgusted look, added, I'll watch over Francisco. We don't need someone like you here. When I looked at Francisco, he said coldly, I understand what Mum and Sis are saying. It's a bit difficult to have a wife who doesn't do housework. Looking at Francisco's face, my heart felt heavy. He continued with a cold smile. I have my own store, so I decide how to use my money. But being with someone who spends on anything and everything might be difficult. Why has it come to this? Despite being shaken by his words, I looked into Francisco's eyes and counted. Also, I've noticed things have been going well with that new part-time girl. She's more attractive than you are now. Maybe it's time for you to pack up and find a new place to live. A fire of anger surged within me. Although I didn't voice it, it was clear in my eyes. But taking a step back and calming myself, I replied after taking a deep breath. All right, I'll look for a new home. That's better. Finally, you understand? I'll feel much better without you around. Hearing those words, I felt a surge of indescribable emotion. I took out something I had already prepared from a corner of the room. Well, let's send it with this. In my hand was a divorce paper already filled out. I had it on hand, anticipating that something might happen someday. Oh, you had this prepared beforehand, Francisco said. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll sign it. Enjoy your new life. Smugly, Francisco signed the papers. That night, I moved to a nearby weekly rental apartment with just the bare essentials and the divorce paper. No one tried to stop me when I left. Did they ever really care about me? After submitting the divorce paper at the city office, I found a stylish apartment to start fresh. During this time, an unexpected opportunity came my way, a promotion I had been putting off because of my family situation. I seized this chance and began working as a section manager. Every day, as I dedicated myself entirely to my job, I felt a renewed sense of accomplishment. In the midst of these busy days, my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was my former mother-in-law. I thought, we have nothing to do with each other anymore, right? And without checking her message, I swiped to dismiss the call. My new life had begun, and I wouldn't look back at the past. A year flew by. One weekend, as I was relaxing in my room listening to my favourite music, my phone rang again. To my surprise, it was my former mother-in-law. Wondering what she wanted after all this time, I picked up. Hello, is something wrong? I asked. Michelle, I finally got through. I didn't think you would answer after so many calls. Well, it's been a while. What's going on? She hesitated a moment and then asked, How's your new life? Despite her probing tone, I replied cheerfully, It's great. I love my new apartment and work is going smoothly. I even got promoted and am living freely. That's good. Michelle, can you come back home? I was taken aback and blurted out, Why? We're struggling financially. I thought to myself, I knew it, and responded, Carly, Francisco's cafe only makes about $1,000 a month, right? If no one else in the family works, things could be tough. You knew about that. Yes, Francisco's cafe wasn't doing well. I was fully aware of its financial situation since I handled all the accounting. But he pretended to be the successful owner without understanding the real state of his business. It was almost laughable how oblivious he was. I handled all the finances and procurement, so of course I knew. She seemed shocked. You knew and didn't tell us. And we didn't know you were doing so well in such a big company, or that you were contributing so much to the household expenses. Yes, I contributed more than $3,000 every month. Thanks to that, you all managed. The truth was, to bridge the gap in Francisco's business losses, I used my salary. He seemed completely unaware of the situation, and after I left, it seemed reality hit hard. Michelle, can you please come back? Curious, I asked. So how's Francisco's cafe doing now? She sighed. We might have to close soon. The part-time workers keep quitting, I said with a bit of an inward smirk. With that slightly sloppy management style, it's hard to keep it going for long, isn't it? His little bit of pride doesn't help, not doing proper work. I mean, how many women out there do you think would be willing to support a guy like that? My former mother-in-law was momentarily at a loss for words given my somewhat sarcastic comment. Suddenly she said, Wait, I'm a bit busy now. Since you left, the house is a mess. It's chaotic with things everywhere. Wait, what do you mean? I asked. She described the disarray of their home, with belongings scattered everywhere, looking like a storeroom. Without anyone to cook, they were eating out, which was costing a lot. The washing machine broke down, and there was no room in the budget to buy a new one. Actually, the appliances that you took back, I was really relying on them, my former mother-in-law said. Huh? Why is that? Those were for my convenience. Besides, I bought them myself, so it's okay for me to take them back, right? Yeah, I guess so. But I never realized housework was this challenging, my former mother-in-law said with a firm tone. With 3 adults in the house, how can it be that hard? What are Francisco and your daughter doing? A hint of fatigue could be heard in her voice. As for Francisco, his staff members have been quitting and sales have plummeted. As soon as he found out, he became really downcast and has just been lazing around at home. What? But Francisco used to spend his money from the store without any restraint, right? On top of that, Mia doesn't help at all. She doesn't do anything around the house and even gets her allowance from me. To be honest, living on just my pension for the 3 of us is really hard. Mia once told me that I was unnecessary because she was there, I responded with a hint of sarcasm. My former mother-in-law desperately said, Michelle, we're really in trouble. Living on just my pension for the 3 of us is quite tough. I have no intention of returning to that house. It must be hard living with all the baggage. She seemed to be at a loss for words. Seeing her like this made me feel a bit sorry for her. But as I was about to hang up, my former mother-in-law seemed eager to say something. Michelle, I'm really sorry. Can you reconsider us? Her voice sounded a bit exhausted. I wonder if we can ever spend days together with smiles again, she said. Huh? Was it that hard without me? I replied with a mix of surprise and calmness. After a short pause, my former mother-in-law took a deep breath. Yes, there's actually an issue with the property tax. We might have to let go of the house. I see, but I really don't want to get involved anymore. Decide what you're going to do with your family. I hung up without waiting for her next words. After that, I set it up so I wouldn't receive any more calls from her. In my room, holding my favorite mug filled with aromatic coffee, I enjoyed my time alone, looking at the outside scenery. A smile spontaneously appeared on my face. A few months later, when I passed by the cafe where Francisco used to work, I noticed the place was now quiet and empty. Recalling its past liveliness, I felt a bit nostalgic. It seems they really closed the shop. While walking around the old town, I became curious about my former in-laws' house and saw a sold sign. Coincidentally, I bumped into an old neighbor in town. According to her, those 3 had quickly sold their house and moved to a small apartment nearby. In their new home, there were always loud arguments and even the smell of garbage. It seems the neighbors are quite bothered, and it has become a bit of local gossip. It must be tough for them, I thought, but with a bit of effort, life can change. I wonder why they don't try. As I gazed at the old house, these thoughts wandered in my mind. A lot has happened to me since then, but I'm living each day to the fullest. In fact, a handsome guy from my workplace confessed, saying, I really admire your hard-working nature. Now we're enjoying our dates, and I'm really looking forward to what the future holds. If I get married again, I really want to be happy. I'm feeling very excited about it now. Hey there, I'm Emily, a newly 29-year-old. Many years ago, I did the incredibly stupid thing of hitching myself to a man with more issues than mental space. I had the romantic notion that love would save everything. I felt that I could be the one to teach him how worthy he was. Boy, was I wrong. Love is powerful, but it does not have the magical ability to teach a person to love themselves. My ex, I'll call him Joseph, was very intent on making his rents happy. I am not talking in the regular old wants to please my parents, proud. This insatiable need for their approval was so deeply ingrained, it shaped everything he did and seemed to be the ruler by which his very identity had become measured. Now about his parents, whom we'll call Mr. and Mrs. Ellis to keep things anonymous. They were a classic case of parents who didn't really engage with their son's life, leaving him desperate for their attention and approval. It was truly sad to see. I quickly figured out that I couldn't fill the emotional gap left by his parents. What's worse, Joseph had this terrible habit of blowing our savings on whatever his parents wanted. Yes, I'm talking about over-the-top gifts, fancy vacations, and all kinds of splurges that were completely unnecessary. Our money seemed to flow directly into Mr. and Mrs. Ellis's pockets, making their disregard even more frustrating for me. This reckless spending was a constant source of fights between us. It felt like I was competing with his parents for his priorities, and it was draining our marriage. Despite the turmoil and never-ending disagreements, my care for Joseph didn't waver. I hoped he could escape the unrealistic expectations of his parents and discover true joy within himself. Yet it became painfully clear that my love alone wasn't enough to pull him from the grasp of their harmful influence. Brace yourselves, because this roller coaster story takes an even sharper turn. One day, Joseph came to me with a serious look, hinting he had something major to share. Having been through many ups and downs with him, I braced myself for what was next, unaware of the bombshell about to be dropped. As Joseph started the conversation, I had a gut feeling it would escalate into our biggest disagreement yet. "Emily, there's something crucial I need to discuss," he said, setting a serious tone. "What's going on?" I inquired, already tensing up for what might come next. "It's about my parents. They're retiring soon. I've been thinking of gifting them a luxury vacation as a surprise. It's going to cost a pretty penny," he shared with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "That sounds lovely, as long as the money is coming from your personal savings." "I really don't want to dip into our joint savings again," I said, hoping to avoid another financial argument. "I don't have enough to cover it myself. I was hoping to use some of our savings," Joseph admitted, looking hopeful yet anxious. "Joseph, if it's beyond what we can comfortably afford, maybe we should reconsider the expense," I suggested gently, trying to bring him back to reality. But he quickly lost his cool. "You just don't get it, Emily. I love my parents. I want to do something extraordinary for them. Love isn't about counting every penny spent, it's about grand gestures," he argued passionately. I countered, "But love is also about being there for each other and making sacrifices together, not at the cost of our financial stability. This trip might mean a lot to them, but we have to think about our future too." Joseph was insistent, though. "I have to do this for them. I thought you, of all people, would understand. They're everything to me." "And you're everything to me, Joseph, but we have to be practical. We can't just use up all our savings on one trip," I reasoned, hoping to find some middle ground. He accused me of being selfish, unable to see the importance of his gesture. "It's not about being selfish, it's about being sensible and planning for what's ahead," I explained, wondering just how much he planned to spend. When he said he needed all of it, my heart sank. "All of our savings? Joseph, that's just reckless," I said, shocked by the magnitude of his request. "You're being heartless," he retorted, convinced I couldn't understand his desire to please his parents. "No, Joseph, I'm being realistic. We can't afford to give away $85,000 on a whim," I said, my patience wearing thin. His casual mention of getting the money back later only added to my frustration. "Really, Joseph, that's not how this works," I snapped back, my sarcasm barely veiling my disbelief. It was clear we were at an impasse. Our views on love, responsibility, and financial security were clashing more than ever. The argument reached a fever pitch. Our voices weren't the only things escalating. Suddenly, objects were taking flight, shattering upon impact as if to punctuate our heated exchange. In this chaos, Joseph dropped a bombshell, declaring that if I couldn't back him up on this, he wanted a divorce. He probably expected me to panic, to claw desperately at the fragments of our marriage, but I didn't. Instead, I gathered all the serenity and resolve I could muster and simply responded, "Okay, Joseph, if that's truly what you desire." The astonishment on his face was a sight to behold. He had anticipated tears, begging even, but what he got was my unwavering stance. I was done indulging and fostering his fantasies. If he wished to squander his future chasing shadows, he was free to do so without me. I didn't mince my words. I laid it all bare. I made it clear that his endless quest for his parents' approval was as futile as trying to shield oneself from a storm with just an umbrella. an exercise in futility. He attempted to counter, but a simple raise of my hand stopped him cold. I declared my exhaustion from battling for a love ensnared by unrealistic expectations and an unending thirst for validation. Go ahead, spend your fortune chasing after those who hardly glance your way, I told him, firm in my resolve to end the cycle of letdowns and empty promises. And just like that, the harsh truth struck him, the grim reality of our predicament finally dawning on him. Our marriage had deteriorated into a war zone, and it was time to hoist the white flag and seek peace on individual paths. A month has passed since the divorce was finalized, and I can honestly say the feeling of liberation is utterly exhilarating. Gone are the days of grieving, no more endless disputes over finances or yearning for approval that was never ours to win. Now I'm breathing freely, freed from the heavy load of his doubts that once shadowed my days. The sun seems to shine a bit more brightly with each new day. True, Joseph made attempts to sneak back into my life, cloaked in concern and queries about my well-being. Yet, I could easily see through his facade. There was no way I was going to fall for his ploys once more. As the saying goes, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I decisively turned away from his efforts to reignite any spark that was once there. I had realized I'd invested too much in trying to repair someone uninterested in changing. It was high time I shifted the focus to my growth and joy. Rebuilding wasn't a walk in the park, let me be clear. Splitting our shared assets and getting accustomed to a different financial reality demanded patience and resilience. I was used to a certain way of living, but adapting wasn't foreign to me. I embraced the hard work required to reconstruct my life anew, discovering a strength and independence I hadn't known was within me. Rekindling old friendships, diving back into hobbies I'd put on the back burner, and discovering new interests made the world feel vast and full of possibilities. I was keen to make the most of this fresh start. Certainly, there were moments filled with self-doubt and solitude, and adjusting to a new budget was a hurdle. The wounds from a dissolved marriage don't heal overnight. Yet, with each day that passed, I found comfort in the fact that I was no longer sacrificing my happiness to cater to someone else's insecurities. The ease with which I moved forward might have been a sign that I had been clinging to a lost cause for too long. It amazed me how much I could achieve once freed from that burden. So there I was, a month later, still navigating through adjustments but flourishing all the same. Joseph's incessant messaging had taken a new turn. He was now painting himself as the protagonist of a dramatic tale, claiming to be in danger and insisting on a meeting. Exhausted by his constant attempts to contact me, I decided it was time to confront the situation. In the midst of his ongoing messages, I called him. "Joseph, we've been through this. We're divorced. It's time for us to move on," I firmly stated. "Emily, please, I just need a moment to explain. I'm in serious trouble, and you're the only one I can turn to for help," he implored. Perhaps it was the long absence of his voice, or maybe he truly sounded scared, but against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. "Fine, but we're not meeting at my place. Let's go to that cafe we used to frequent. No tricks, understood?" I said. "Thank you, Emily. I promise I just need someone to listen. You're the only one who gets me," he replied, sounding relieved. "I know what you're thinking. Emily, why would you agree to meet Joseph after everything? Believe me, I question my own decision. Yet there's a part of us that sometimes gives in to a mix of curiosity and a lingering shred of concern. No matter how strong we are, I couldn't ignore his plea. Divorced or not, part of me still cared. So there we sat opposite each other in the charming bistro, surrounded by the comforting aroma of coffee. However, not even the pleasant scent could soften the thick air of tension between us. Observing Joseph with anxiety etched across his face and his attempts to pull at my heartstrings with those sorrowful eyes was almost amusing. This time, however, I wasn't swayed. Leaning back, I maintained a composed demeanor, ready to hear him out yet firmly in control. I had every intention of steering this conversation on my terms. Okay, Joseph, you've got my attention for now. What's this danger you've supposedly found yourself in? And just to be clear, playing the hero isn't on my agenda anymore. I'm done cleaning up after your messes, I said, keeping my tone firm yet open. Joseph exhaled deeply, his face a mix of regret and desperation that was almost pitiful to see. However, I steeled myself against any emotional manipulation. I know I've made mistakes before, Emily, but this situation is different. I've gotten involved with some seriously bad people. I owe them a lot of money, and they're not known for their patience, he confessed. I couldn't help but raise an eyebrow, skeptical of his dramatic story. Really, Joseph? Dangerous people? Are we revisiting the tale of your imaginary friends who seem to attract trouble? I couldn't hide my disbelief. Joseph's expression shifted to one of hurt and frustration, evidently hoping for a more sympathetic ear. No, Emily, this isn't made up. I'm in deep trouble, and coming to you was my last resort, he insisted, his voice laced with desperation. So let me guess, you spiraled after our divorce and now you're in debt. Was it that trip you mentioned? I couldn't keep my voice down, drawing curious glances from other cafe patrons. I shot them an apologetic look, trying to regain my composure. Look, I got caught up in something foolish, I admit, but now I'm in a mess that's bigger than I can handle alone, Joseph admitted, his gaze pleading. My frustration was close to boiling over. How could he waltz back into my life with yet another crisis? Yet, underneath the anger, I couldn't completely ignore the remaining shred of empathy for him. How much are you in for? I asked, bracing myself. $45,000, Joseph responded sheepishly. $45,000? Joseph, are you out of your mind? The cafe's patrons turned their heads, their stares sharp as knives. This time I didn't bother to offer an apology to the surrounding cafe patrons for my outburst. If they were in my shoes hearing what I was hearing, they'd likely react the same way. Emily, please, I'm begging you. I've got nowhere else to turn. I know I've made a mess of things, but you're the one person who really believed in me, Joseph pleaded, his eyes shining with a sincerity that reminded me of the man I once loved. But those days were long gone, and my priority now was self-preservation, even if it meant walking away from him. Don't pull at my heartstrings, Joseph. It's way too late for that. When you said you needed help at most $112,000, but $45,000. You've completely lost it, I responded, my voice a mix of disbelief and indignation. Overwhelmed, Joseph began to cry, oblivious to the uncomfortable glances from others. Joseph, calm down. This isn't the place for a scene. What's going to happen if you don't pay this back? I asked, trying to grasp the full extent of his predicament. They're threatening to harm me, Emily. I'm not joking. This is really bad, he managed between sobs. Recognizing the gravity of his situation, I softened a bit. Okay, Joseph, start from the beginning. Tell me everything, I urged. He recounted his story, explaining his desperate attempt to finance an extravagant trip for his parents. He'd relied on a friend who ultimately let him down, leaving him ensnared in significant debt. As he shared his tale, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, frustration at his recklessness and a begrudging amusement at the irony of his situation. So you borrowed from dangerous people to impress your parents who haven't even acknowledged your efforts? That's what you're saying? I asked, my tone laced with incredulity. Joseph's face fell, tears streaking down his cheeks as he acknowledged the bitter truth. It's true. Since they went on that trip, it's as if I don't exist to them, he admitted, the remorse in his voice palpable. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for him. It was a harsh dose of reality for Joseph, facing the consequences of his decisions head on. Yes, As much as I wanted to detach myself, seeing him so vulnerable and regretful stirred a compassion within me. "What a complex situation you've entangled yourself in," I said. "Indeed, Joseph, I know the last thing you want to hear is, 'I told you so,' but you did bring this upon yourself. I warned you that it wasn't a smart move. Worse yet, you chose to divorce me over it, and now here you are at a loss. You sought their approval, investing everything into their wishes, only to be met with silence. It's a tough lesson, but it's one you needed to learn." I said the words heavy with both concern and resignation. This situation was a difficult reality for both of us to face. Joseph had pinned his self-worth on people who couldn't value his sacrifices, and I had to accept that I couldn't shield him from his own decisions any longer. I had hoped that facing such dire consequences would make him see that I had always been in his corner. Reducing himself to merely someone who seeks parental approval was his undoing. As we sat there enveloped in silence, the weight of our past, filled with broken promises and dreams, pressed down on us. At that moment, I realized it was time to let go completely. No more second chances. No more trying to repair the irreparable. Joseph needed to confront the repercussions of his actions on his own, and I had to pursue my happiness elsewhere. "I do hope you find a way out of this, Joseph," I offered, my voice tinged with a finality that surprised even me. "You're not going to help?" Joseph looked at me in disbelief. "What the heck? No," I replied. "Joseph, I can't help you." "And why not?" he asked. "Because I don't have the resources to bail you out. And even if I could, taking a loan I'd spend a lifetime repaying, is out of the question. I can't afford to be as careless as you've been," I explained, my resolve firm. "Come on, Emily, please, I'm begging you," he persisted, his desperation clear. "Joseph, expecting me to jump in and solve this for you, especially with how you're acting, is unrealistic," I said, my patience wearing thin. "Yeah, I did expect that. You're my ex-wife, not my enemy," he replied, still holding on to a sliver of hope. But it was clear our paths had diverged too far. My journey was now about finding peace and joy, independent of the chaos that wants to find us. "And that's exactly where the problem lies, Joseph. You assume I'll always be around to pick up the pieces because that's what I've always done. I was your wife. It was natural for me to help you out of your troubles. But I can't and shouldn't keep doing that. It's not my job nor my responsibility. After everything, I don't owe you anything, especially considering how our hard-earned money was wasted on your unappreciative and toxic parents." "It's because I love them," Joseph said. "But I love myself too, and loving myself means doing what's best for me, which includes protecting my well-being," I responded. Joseph lowered his gaze, a sign of concession, understanding that the assistance he sought wouldn't come from me. "Since it seems you're out of options, I'll offer you one piece of advice. Leave. Move somewhere far away where they can't reach you. If that's not something you can manage, then I'm not sure what more you expect from me." He sat there silent, his demeanor shifting to one of irritation, seemingly upset by my firm stance on not rescuing him this time. "It's time for us to go our separate ways, Joseph. I can't allow myself to be pulled back into the turmoil of your life. We both deserve to find our peace," I said, hoping he'd understand. "If you wished me well, you'd help," he retorted. "Goodbye, Joseph. I'm changing my number," I declared, standing up to leave. As I walked away, Joseph remained seated, his expression a complex mix of feelings. It was a difficult yet essential step I had to take for the sake of my happiness and self-respect.
Emily, can you tell us about your suspicions and the evidence you found? The prosecutor asked, his voice calm and steady. I took a deep breath and began. I started noticing strange symptoms after moving in with James. His mother's health declined rapidly, and she had unexplained bruises. I found similar symptoms in myself later on. What did you find in your investigation? He prompted. I hired a private detective who discovered that Linda was in severe financial trouble. We found evidence that she had poisoned her husband and was likely trying to do the same to me and James for financial gain. I explained, my voice trembling. Did Linda ever say anything to you that indicated her guilt? The prosecutor asked. Yes, just before I lost consciousness, she told me it was over for me, and that after I died, James would be next. She wanted everything we had, I said, my voice breaking with emotion. The defense lawyer stood up to cross-examine me, trying to cast doubt on my testimony. Emily, isn't it true that you and Linda never got along? Couldn't this be a personal vendetta? No, this isn't personal. This is about stopping a killer, I said firmly, refusing to be intimidated. As the trial went on, more witnesses testified, and the evidence piled up against Linda. The private detective presented his findings, and the medical examiner confirmed the presence of Warren in the exhumed bodies. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. When Linda was called to the stand, she initially denied everything, but the weight of the evidence was too much. Under pressure, she finally broke down and confessed. In the next court hearing, Linda looked at James with a mocking smile. Yes, I did it. I poisoned my husband, our mother, and I tried to poison you and Emily. I wanted it all, the money, the property. And look at you now, crying like a baby. James's face crumpled, tears streaming down his cheeks as he heard her words. Linda, how could you? She laughed, a cold, cynical sound that sent chills down my spine. You were always so gullible, James. You never saw what was right in front of you. The judge's gavel banged, calling for order in the court. Linda was convicted of double premeditated murder and the attempted murder of me and James. She was sentenced to a long prison term, her mocking smile fading as she was led away in handcuffs. After the trial, I made the hard decision to divorce James. There was just too much pain and betrayal to mend. I went through treatment to recover from the poisoning, and I heard through friends that James was also undergoing treatment because Linda had tried to poison him too. I was in my new apartment, trying to rebuild my life. It was small but cozy, a fresh start away from all the chaos. I focused on getting healthy and finding some peace. One afternoon, I was having coffee with my friend Sarah, who had been my rock through all of this. So how are you really doing, Emily? Sarah asked, looking at me with concern. I'm getting there, one day at a time. It's been rough, but I'm trying to move on, I replied, sipping my coffee. Have you heard from James? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, he's tried a few times to patch things up, I said, rolling my eyes. But I told him it's over. Good for you. After everything he put you through, you deserve better, she said, nodding in approval. I just can never get past the way he always sided with Linda over me. You can say all of your vows, but trust is the thing that counts in marriage. And when it's gone, you might as well leave, I said, feeling a twinge of pain. You're right. You need someone who has faith in you and never leaves your side, she said with a tight hand squeeze. I don't know, maybe it was just one of those days that I felt like going through some old photos and deciding what to keep, what to get rid of. They each reminded me of something, be it good or terrible. All that was heavily broken up with pings from my phone of messages smacking into us from James. It took me a little bit, but I finally did. Emily, I know how much pain I'd have caused you. Just one more conversation, please. The message read. I decided to be blunt with him instead. James, there's nothing more we can do or say. We both need to move on. Good luck to you, but I am done with this chapter. I hit send and experienced a weird mix of relief and it being over. Chapter IV slammed the door on Story of My Life. At night I began to paint, finding a place of refuge and expression. This was good for me. It keeps my emotions grounded. I even signed up for a local book club, and finally made several new friends. Each and every day became a moment toward recovery, as well as I was on a mission to develop a life of trust fund, happiness, and tranquility. It was part of my past and would always be with me, but the future had not been decided. Ready to take on whatever was coming my way, but this time I would be stronger, wiser. Ah, Sandra, they mean well. You know, they're just. Billy scratched his head. I'll talk to them. They'll chill out. Back in the kitchen, it felt like the final round of a cook-off where I was the only contestant, and the judges were out for blood. So Sandra, when's dinner? Billy must be starving, Lauren said, glancing at me like I was the help. Whenever the chili decides it's ready, I replied, but I kept my voice light. It's a tricky situation. Dinner landed on the table, and I scanned their faces. Mrs. Cherry stirred her food around, inspecting every bean like it held the secret to the universe. A bit different from how I make it, Mrs. Cherry finally said, "That's code for nice try, but you're no match for me." Billy dived in though, bless him. "Babe, this is awesome, right, ma?" Lauren muttered, sure, and Mrs. Cherry just shrugged like she was agreeing with the worst food critic. After they left, Billy was slapping his belly, saying, "It's all good." I watched the door shut behind them, feeling tiny, like I'm losing at a game I didn't sign up to play. The next time they popped over, it was the same old tune, like nothing had changed. I must have been dreaming to think a few words from Billy might turn the tide. Still, I asked him to talk to his mother about boundaries. I thought getting married was the hard part. Fitting into Billy's family is the real challenge. They've got their own idea of family, and I'm not in it yet. If this is what married life is like, count me out of the honeymoon phase. It was one of those days where the clock seemed to tick slower than syrup drips from a bottle. That's when my phone decided to ring. Glancing at the caller ID, my heart sank. It was Mrs. Cherry again. Sandra, her voice was stern, and it did nothing for my headache. "You think you can just snatch Billy away from us?" Her words stung like vinegar on a paper cut. I glanced over at Billy, hoping he'd at least flinch at his mother's tone. Nothing. He was glued to the TV screen, a statue with a heartbeat. "Mrs. Cherry, it's not like that. We're just trying to set up some boundaries," I said, my voice thin. "Boundaries?" she fumed. "That's just a fancy word for shutting us out. You can't do that to us. To me, he's my son." I blinked back frustration. Billy was still silent, looking like someone shrunk his spine in the wash. Listen, it's normal for married folks to want their own space. I tried to keep the edge out of my tone. "Space? He's never needed space before you came," she retorted sharply. Each word chipped away at my patience. That's when Billy decided to speak up, but not to back me up. "No, Mom, everything's okay." "Sophia's not. She's not being unreasonable, I guess," he said, but his voice was like wet cardboard. "Billy, I just can't believe this. First Lauren tells me Sandra is making a fuss over our visits, and now this." Mrs. Cherry sounded hurt, and Billy jumped on that. Lauren said that. Billy turned to me, eyebrows raised as if I was the one causing trouble. Yeah, she did, and I think she's right. Family is family. "Billy, you can't just turn your back on us." She pressed harder, knowing she was pulling him in. I saw my husband, the man I loved, deflate like a balloon 3 days after a party. The call ended with promises of another family meeting that felt more like a summit to discuss the terms of my surrender. After the call, it was as if nothing had happened. Billy settled back on the couch, resuming his championship in channel surfing. Mrs. Cherry continued her visits, each one a masterclass in thinly veiled jabs, and Lauren might as well have been a puppet master, always getting Billy's ear whenever she pleased. When word got back to me that Lauren was bad-mouthing me all over town, my blood boiled for a second, but I didn't let it get the best of me. I knew I had to handle this the right way. I waited for the right moment to deal with Lauren directly, and that moment came sooner than I thought. I found Lauren at the market on a Sunday morning, filling her basket with groceries. She didn't see me at first, but I walked right up to her, steady and strong. "Lauren," I said. She looked up and rolled her eyes. "What do you want, Sandra?" "We need to talk. It's about the stories you've been spreading." She snorted loudly, a smirk spreading across her face. "Stories? I don't know what you're talking about." "The rumors, Lauren. About me. Teresa's bossy, Teresa's this and that. Cut it out." She laughed, tossing an apple up and down in her hand. "And what are you going to do if I don't? You think you can boss me around?" I kept my cool. "Listen, spreading lies isn't just mean. It's slander, and I won't stand for it." Lauren laughed again, louder this time. "You're going to sue me? Get real, Sandra. You haven't got the stomach for that. People's reputations are at stake. I'm serious, Lauren. Keep it up, and yes, I will take legal action if I need to." The arrogance just poured off her as she leaned in close. "You're in way over your head, little Miss City Lawyer. Going to take me to court. This isn't a joke. Lauren, I'm giving you a chance to stop this nonsense before it gets serious." She shoved her face closer to mine, a challenge plain in her expression. "Bring it on, Sandra. To your worst." With that, she spun on her heel, almost knocking over a display of canned beans, and left me standing there. Her laughter echoed through the aisle long after she was gone. I walked back home slower than usual, thinking everything over. Later that day, when my husband came back, I told him what happened. He was in the middle of taking his boots off and froze, one boot off, the other still on. "You did what now?" he asked. I told Lauren off. I threatened her with legal action if she doesn't stop spreading rumors. His face went red, then white. "You couldn't just let it go. Why did you have to stir the pot, Sandra?" I straightened up. "Because it's not right, and I won't be walked over. Not by her, not by anyone." We were silent for a while, both lost in our thoughts. It was clear this was more than a little family squabble. It was a line drawn in the sand, and I had to stand my ground. He just stood there with that same lost puppy look that's becoming permanent on his face. I threw myself onto the couch, fuming. The fight might calm down for now, but Lauren is the kind of weed that keeps sprouting up. No telling when she'll start yapping again, and Billy, God knows if he'll ever find the guts to stand up to them. Right now, I just need to cool off and figure out my next move in this messy game they're all too eager to play. The whole mess with Lauren had me weighing my options like a pros and cons list in my head. I signed up for a life with Billy, not a daily soap opera with his family. With things going from bad to worse, the word divorce started rattling around in my brain. My thoughts changed in a dryer. Then, as if on cue, Mrs. Cherry, the town's self-appointed gossip queen, and Lauren's godmother, called me up. "Sandra, dear," she chirped like a bird that spotted a worm. "We're throwing a little party for Lauren's engagement. It's happening at the Jens next week. We'd love to see you there." The tone of her voice was all fake niceness, the kind that practically screams, "I dare you to show up." After hanging up, I stared at the silent phone, thinking how this invite smelled like a setup. Billy was already on edge, and now this. I couldn't help but blurt out to him, "Guess who's got plans for us next week?" He was sitting at the kitchen table, his forehead creased like he was trying to iron out a thought. Who's scheming now? Your sister's engagement party, I said. I said it straight out. We're invited, courtesy of Mrs. Cherry. Billy's face went a shade paler, the crease steepening. Oh hell, yeah, oh hell sounds about right. So what's the plan here, Billy? Are we going to roll over and play nice, or what? He was quiet for too long, and I'm not having it. Come on, spit it out. Billy finally looked up, his eyes serious. Sandra, it's family. I think we should go. I crossed my arms, feeling the heat rise up my neck. And let Lauren have a field day. I'm not their punching bag. He threw his hands up a bit too dramatically. What do you want me to say? That's my sister. I leaned in, my hands flat on the table. And I'm your wife. Does that not count for much these days? The word divorce was right there on the tip of my tongue, but I bit it back hard. Billy ran his hand through his hair, making it stand up like he'd just had an electric shock. Of course it counts. Look, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place here. I'm a heartbeat away from losing my cool. Well, guess what, sweetheart? So am I. I married you, now your constant need to please your family at my expense. Billy stood up, walked over, and took my hands. They felt rough, all work and worry. Sandra, I love you. I do. And I hate that it's come to this. Let's not go to the party. You and me, we're a team, right? It struck me then that this was the first time in a long while he picked me over them without flinching. It felt like finding an oasis in the middle of the desert. That night, the thought of divorce quietly tucked itself away. Not gone, but sleeping like a dog with one eye always open. But it was enough for me to catch my breath, to maybe believe that we could find some solid ground again. The place was hopping when we showed up, walls throbbing with too loud laughter and clinking glasses. I spotted Mrs. Cherry right away, sitting queen bee style at the biggest table, with that I rule the world look. There was Billy's sister Lauren, all grins like she won the lottery, and her guy Andrew, a deer-in-headlights type trying to smile. His folks were with them too, stiff and awkward, like they wandered into the wrong movie theater. Mrs. Cherry zeroed in on me the second we stepped in. Sandra, she used like I was a 6-year-old not playing nice. You'll be taking care of the bill tonight, right? To show you're one of us. I nearly spit out my drink. What? Why me? The table's all ears now, and the air's thick with that, oh, this is going to be good vibe. Mrs. Cherry stretched her smile. Tradition, sweetheart. The newest family member always shows their commitment. My jaw clamped shut so fast, I'm surprised I didn't chip a tooth. Commitment. That sounds a whole lot like a shakedown. Everyone perked up like they're hearing a whistle. There she goes, Mrs. Cherry, puffing up like I slapped her. Excuse me, that's uncalled for. Billy leaned in, his voice barely more than a whisper. Just do it, Sandra. It's not a big deal. A big deal. I whispered back, my voice turning into a snarl. No thanks. I ain't no one's piggy bank. He's hissing now, real quiet but clear. Pay the damn bill, Sandra, or we're through. I mean it. My laugh is as sharp as a snapped wire. You're not serious. He's all stone-faced and tight-mouthed. You think I'm playing. I stare him down. Divorce over this. He's all family first, Sandra. I'm shaking my head. And where do I fit, huh? It's showtime, and even Andrew and his parents are watching, their faces screaming. What the hell's going on? I push back my chair and stand, letting them all hear me. No, I ain't doing this dance, I say, my voice like a hammer on steel. There's shock on their faces, some whispering, some wide-eyed. Billy's going red, white, red like a stoplight losing its mind. Mrs. Cherry looks like she might choke. I walk out into the night. It's black and cool and smells like freedom. I hear the door slam behind me. My heart's racing, but it's Billy who threw the divorce word, not me. The bar was nothing special, just another hole in the wall with dim lights and the smell of old beer. I had barely settled with a glass of something strong when my phone rang. It was Billy, and for a moment, I considered not answering, but I did. "Sandra, listen, I'm sorry." I didn't mean to say divorce. Billy's voice was rushed and apologetic. Before I could even think of a response, Lauren's voice blasted through. "You've ruined my engagement dinner, you selfish." The phone must have changed hands so fast my head spun. I could practically hear the venom in her voice. In the background, I heard Mrs. Jerry loud and clear. "Why should I pay? He's your son. You pay the bill. I won't have my daughter marrying into a family that doesn't know how to treat people." The chaos from JPA's was spilling through the phone like a bad sitcom without a laugh track. People were arguing, and it seemed like nobody was keen on picking up the tab. I pushed away from the bar, my anger giving me a clear, calm voice. "Lauren, chill out. Your mom's the one making a scene, not me." "Sandra, hang up," Billy said, his voice a faint whisper behind his sister's ranting. "No, she needs tow," Lauren kept going, but I wasn't about to play this game. I ended the call. The screen showed a string of missed calls and texts that I swiped away. They were probably all about the same thing, guilt and blame, the usual. I looked at the bartender. "Another one, please." He nodded, pouring another shot without a word. Silence settled around me, except for the low murmur from the regulars scattered around. I tried to collect my thoughts. My phone screen lit up again, showing Billy's name. The guy just didn't know when to quit. I flipped the phone face down, letting it go to voicemail. It was futile to talk when the whole crew was going off the rails back there. A few drinks later, the door to the bar crept open, and in came a chill gust of evening air. But I didn't look up. It didn't matter who was coming and going. I thought about what had just happened and what it all meant. Here I was, sitting in a bar because my in-laws decided I was the bank, and instead of understanding, my supposed partner turned it into an ultimatum. I finally picked up my phone and typed out a text. "Billy, we're done. Lauren can think what she wants, and your mom can deal with her own damn bills. I will not be part of this circus anymore." Just as I hit send, the phone rang again. This time, I shut it off. I was tired of the arguing, the demands, and above all, tired of feeling like I was alone in a partnership that was supposed to have my back. When the room finally stopped spinning and my head felt a little clearer, I knew what had to happen next. It was time to start looking forward, even if I had to do it on my own. No more games. No more being the scapegoat for a family that couldn't see past their own drama. I walked out of the bar, leaving the noise and the night behind. The air was getting colder, and the city lights were starting to blur into the coming darkness. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, it was mine to take. What a mess that last evening was. The whole thing at the restaurant blew up bigger than anyone thought. The groom had had it up to here with the drama and ditched the engagement right then and there. You should have seen Lauren's face when he dropped that bomb. I can't believe it. No one saw it coming, least of all her. Then the mother-in-law lost it, screaming like a banshee. She was causing such a scene that the groom's family looked ready to call 911. She was yelling about disrespect and no consideration. It was pure chaos, like one of those trashy daytime shows where chairs start flying. Meanwhile, I was done. I filed for divorce and cut off all contact. I ignored Billy's calls and deleted his messages. The last I heard, he, his sister, and my former mother-in-law from hell are all holed up in the same house, probably driving each other crazy. As for me, it felt like I finally stopped holding my breath after years underwater. Life's simpler now, but that evening is still the talk whenever I bump into people from the old circle. It gets old, you know. So here's the update for anyone who still cares. I'm living my best, most peaceful life. I'm sitting in my usual spot at the cafe down the street from my place, the one where the coffee is strong, and no one asks too many questions. The barista gives me a nod, the usual he asks, like he's asking if the sky is up. Yep, I say. But those are my days, without the real lit and no pesky in-laws. When work is just work, it makes life a lot easier. I am entitled to my own free time and pleasures, without pouting or whining. I collapse onto my saggy, thrice refurbished couch. The springs are gone, but I fit perfectly in it. I turn on the TV, and it's a crime show that catches criminals. I find it binding. By minute 30, the peace is what does me in. Not creepiness or loneliness, just peace. Breathe in, breathe out. No more eggshells to walk on, and no more fights to mediate between family members. This is living. Every night by the time I reach my pillow, it's with relief. No pat on the back needed. I know my value now, and I am starting to act accordingly. I take a bite of my sandwich when my phone buzzes. A text message from an unknown number. All I can guess is it's Billy seeing his way to text through a third party. I didn't even read it, so I deleted it. Not today, Satan. Not ever. I remember they used to say I would regret this, but nope. No regrets today, folks. The day stretches warm and slow, concluding with a glass of something smooth and an overdue book. A hard but fair heroine, all right. She kind of reminds me of someone equally as unsentimental. I'm Emily Clark. Chemistry has always been a hobby of mine. I have been a kitchen chemist since I was a very small child. I was addicted, much to my mother's annoyance. I went on to study chemical engineering in college after high school. They gave me my first job at a pharmaceutical company working in drug discovery. I loved it. I felt like I wrote the world a better place and was part of saving people, literally making medicines to save lives. I met James at a party thrown by mutual friends 2 years ago. He was even taller than me with sandy blonde hair and a smile that could brighten the darkest room. We hit it off right away. Hey, I'm James, and then he held out his hand. And you are? I'm Emily. I shook his hand and said, pleasure to meet you as well. We spent the entire night talking, and then we were dating just like that. James was charming, always had a smile and bright things to say to make me feel special. We started dating, and 2 years into it, we took the leap to get married. For us, a small wedding surrounded by close friends and family was enough. We got married, and I went to live in James' lovely family house. His mom, Margaret, lived with him in the big old house. James looked after her for several years, as Margaret was bedridden and became quite unwell. I was a naive newcomer, but James needed help. Have you thought about maybe getting her into a care facility? They could give her the medical care she needs. I suggested, trying to be as gentle as possible. James looked uncomfortable. I don't know. Mom has always wanted to stay here. She's comfortable at home. Yeah, but she needs more than we can give her. Think about it, okay. I pressed a bit, hoping he'd see reason. The next day, Linda, James's sister, came over. Linda was a piece of work. She was always on edge, always finding something to complain about. She had recently lost her husband, who was much older and had left her a good amount of money. Linda and I had never really hit it off. James, what's this I hear about putting Mom in a home? Linda snapped as soon as she walked in. I just mentioned it as an option, I said, trying to stay calm. Well, it's not happening. Mom will stay here until the end, Linda said firmly, glaring at me. I decided it was best to drop the subject, especially with Linda being so against it. Besides, she was still mourning her husband, and I didn't want to add to her stress. But dealing with Linda wasn't easy. She had a knack for showing up unannounced and making everything more difficult. She never liked me and made it clear whenever she had the chance. One evening, I was in the kitchen cooking dinner. I was making a simple chicken dish with some vegetables, something easy but tasty. Linda walked in without knocking, as usual. "Emily, you're cooking again," she said, wrinkling her nose. "You know Mom liked her food with real flavor, not this bland stuff." "Good evening to you too, Linda," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm making what I can with what we have." "Well, it's not enough. Maybe you should try a little harder," she snapped. I bit my tongue, not wanting to start a fight. James walked in at that moment, sensing the tension. "Hey, what's going on here?" he asked, looking between us. "James, your wife here thinks bland chicken is what Mom would want." I told her Mom liked her food with flavor. Linda huffed and walked out of the kitchen. James looked at me, clearly frustrated. "Emily, can't you just try to get along with her? She's been through a lot." "James, I'm doing my best, but she's always criticizing me. It's like nothing I do is ever good enough for her," I said, feeling the weight of it all. The next few days were tense. Linda continued to show up unannounced, and each time she found something new to complain about. It felt like I was walking on eggshells, never knowing what would set her off next. One evening, she came over and started criticizing the cleanliness of the house. "Emily, this place is a mess. Don't you ever clean?" she said, looking around with disdain. "I clean every day, Linda." "Maybe if you actually helped, it wouldn't be so hard to keep up," I snapped, finally losing my patience. "How dare you talk to me like that?" "I'm just trying to help," she yelled. "Help by criticizing everything I do." "That's not helping, Linda," I shot back, feeling the anger rising. "Emily, calm down," James said, stepping between us. "I'm Emily Clark. Chemistry has always been a hobby of mine. I have been a kitchen chemist since I was a very small child. I was addicted, much to my mother's annoyance. I went on to study chemical engineering in college after high school. They gave me my first job at a pharmaceutical company working in drug discovery. I loved it. I felt like I wrote the world a better place and was part of saving people, literally making medicines to save lives. I met James at a party thrown by mutual friends 2 years ago. He was even taller than me with sandy blonde hair and a smile that could brighten the darkest room. We hit it off right away. "Hey, I'm James," and then he held out his hand. "And you are?" "I'm Emily." I shook his hand and said, "Pleasure to meet you as well." We spent the entire night talking, and then we were dating just like that. James was charming, always had a smile and bright things to say to make me feel special. We started dating, and 2 years into it, we took the leap to get married. For us, a small wedding surrounded by close friends and family was enough. We got married, and I went to live in James' lovely family house. His mom, Margaret, lived with him in the big old house. James looked after her for several years, as Margaret was bedridden and became quite unwell. I was a naive newcomer, but James needed help. "Have you thought about maybe getting her into a care facility? They could give her the medical care she needs," I suggested, trying to be as gentle as possible. James looked uncomfortable. "I don't know. Mom has always wanted to stay here. She's comfortable at home." "Yeah, but she needs more than we can give her. Think about it, okay?" I pressed a bit, hoping he'd see reason. The next day, Linda, James's sister, came over. Linda was a piece of work. She was always on edge, always finding something to complain about. She had recently lost her husband, who was much older and had left her a good amount of money. Linda and I had never really hit it off. "James, what's this I hear about putting Mom in a home?" Linda snapped as soon as she walked in. "I just mentioned it as an option," I said, trying to stay calm. "Well, it's not happening. Mom will stay here until the end," Linda said firmly, glaring at me. I decided it was best to drop the subject, especially with Linda being so against it. Besides, she was still mourning her husband, and I didn't want to add to her stress. But dealing with Linda wasn't easy. She had a knack for showing up unannounced and making everything more difficult. She never liked me and made it clear whenever she had the chance. One evening, I was in the kitchen cooking dinner. I was making a simple chicken dish with some vegetables, something easy but tasty. Linda walked in without knocking, as usual. "Emily, you're cooking again," she said, wrinkling her nose. "You know Mom liked her food with real flavor, not this bland stuff." "Good evening to you too, Linda," I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm making what I can with what we have." "Well, it's not enough. Maybe you should try a little harder," she snapped. I bit my tongue, not wanting to start a fight. James walked in at that moment, sensing the tension. "Hey, what's going on here?" he asked, looking between us. "James, your wife here thinks bland chicken is what Mom would want." I told her Mom liked her food with flavor. Linda huffed and walked out of the kitchen. James looked at me, clearly frustrated. "Emily, can't you just try to get along with her? She's been through a lot." "James, I'm doing my best, but she's always criticizing me. It's like nothing I do is ever good enough for her," I said, feeling the weight of it all. The next few days were tense. Linda continued to show up unannounced, and each time, she found something new to complain about. It felt like I was walking on eggshells, never knowing what would set her off next. One evening, she came over and started criticizing the cleanliness of the house. "Emily, this place is a mess. Don't you ever clean?" she said, looking around with disdain. "I clean every day, Linda. Maybe if you actually helped, it wouldn't be so hard to keep up," I snapped, finally losing my patience. "How dare you talk to me like that?" "I'm just trying to help," she yelled. "Help by criticizing everything I do." "That's not helping, Linda," I shot back, feeling the anger rising. "Emily, calm down," James said, stepping between us. "I didn't take anything by accident, Linda. This is serious," I said, glaring at her. "Oh, please, you're always looking for drama. Maybe you should focus on your own problems instead of dragging everyone else into them," Linda shot back, rolling her eyes. "Linda, this isn't drama." "This is my life we're talking about," I said, feeling my anger boil over. "Emily, calm down," James said, trying to step between us. "Calm down. Your sister's accusing me of making this up, and you want me to calm down." I yelled, feeling the frustration bubble up. "Emily, you're acting crazy. We can't keep doing this. We need a divorce," James said, his voice flat and final. "Divorce? Are you serious? You're going to believe her over me?" I asked, feeling the shock hit me hard. "Yes, Emily. You're always stirring things up." "I can't take it anymore," he said, looking away. Linda smirked, clearly pleased with how things were turning out. I felt numb as I packed my things, the reality of what was happening sinking in. I couldn't believe this was how it was ending. Linda watched with a triumphant smile as I left the house, my heart heavy with betrayal and disbelief. After leaving James, I rented a small apartment near my work. It was hard to move on, but I was set on getting to the bottom of this mess. I went over all the facts, and it became clear Linda was the one behind everything. She poisoned her husband, her mother, and tried to do the same to me. I hired a private detective, Alex, to dig deeper. I handed him all the information I had, including the results of my blood tests. Alex, I need you to find out everything about Linda. I'm sure she's behind this, I said, handing him this stack of papers. Got it, Emily. I'll start right away. Give me 2 weeks, he replied, nodding firmly. 2 weeks later, Alex called me. Emily, we need to meet. I've got some information. We met at a quiet cafe. Alex had a serious look on his face and a thick folder in his hand. All right, what did you find? I asked, feeling a knot in my stomach. Linda's in serious financial trouble. She blew through all the money from her husband, and now she's got huge debts, Alex explained, opening the folder. I looked through the documents, feeling a surge of anger. So she's been killing for money. First her husband, then her mother, and she tried to kill me. It looks that way. She's desperate and dangerous, Alex said, his voice steady. I decided to call James and set up a meeting. James, it's Emily. Can we talk? I said over the phone, my voice steady but firm. What is this about, Emily? He asked, sounding wary. It's important. It's about Linda, I replied, trying to keep my composure. All right, come over, he agreed, his voice filled with an incomprehensible warmth. I pulled up to James's house, my heart pounding. I had everything ready to confront him about Linda. As I walked in, James greeted me with a warm smile, which caught me off guard. Emily, glad you came. I was thinking, today's our anniversary, he said, holding a bottle of wine. James, we need to talk. It's serious, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Let's hold off on that for a bit. Come on, let's have a drink. It's our anniversary, he insisted, pouring 2 glasses of wine. I hesitated but then agreed. All right, just for a bit. Then we need to talk. We clinked glasses and I took a sip, trying to push my anxiety aside. But after a few minutes, I started feeling dizzy and nauseous. James, I feel really sick. Where did you get this wine? I asked, gripping the table for support. Linda brought it from Italy. She said it's special. I've been drinking it for a while, he replied, looking concerned. James, this wine is poisoned. Linda's trying to kill you for the inheritance. Call 911 now. I managed to say before collapsing to the floor. My vision was blurring as I lay there, barely conscious. I heard the door open and Linda's voice. What's going on here? She demanded, seeing me on the floor. Emily says the wine's poisoned. She's really sick, James explained, panic in his voice. Poisoned? She's drunk and making up lies to turn you against me. Linda snapped, her voice full of venom. I'll get a cold compress, he said, rushing to the kitchen. Linda knelt beside me, her face twisted with a cruel smile. It's over for you, Emily. In a few hours, you'll die of hemorrhage. Then it'll be James's turn, and everything will be mine. I tried to speak, but my body wouldn't respond. The room spun around me, and I felt myself slipping away. The last thing I heard was James returning with the telltale sound of his voice, filled with worry and confusion. Then everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital a few days later, my body aching and my mind foggy. The room was quiet except for the faint beeping of machines. I blinked a few times, trying to clear my vision, and saw a nurse bustling around the room. Hey, you're awake, she said with a bright smile. How are you feeling? Like I've been run over, I muttered, my throat dry and scratchy. What happened? You've been out for a few days. Your husband called the rescue service just in time. even though his sister tried her best to stop him, the nurse said, shaking her head. She was quite the piece of work, that one. James called even with Linda trying to stop him. I asked, feeling a mix of relief and surprise. Yeah, he did. Good thing, too. The doctor said another hour, and it might have been too late, she said. Just then, the door opened and Alex, the private detective, walked in with a police officer. Alex introduced him as Officer Martinez. Emily, glad to see you're awake, Alex said, pulling up a chair next to my bed. Alex, Officer Martinez, what's going on? What happened with Linda? I asked, my voice still weak. Emily, you did it. You helped us neutralize a dangerous criminal, Alex said, his voice firm but kind. A criminal case has been opened against Linda. We exhumed the bodies of her ex-husband and her mother. The examination confirmed they were both poisoned with Warren. Just like me, I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. Yes, the same substance. It caused internal bleeding leading to their slow deaths. Martinez explained, his tone serious. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. I was lying there crying with relief, listening to everything they were telling me. The nightmare was finally over. Emily, you were incredibly brave to come forward with all this. You saved lives by exposing Linda, Alex said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder as the nurse continued her checks. Alex and Officer Martinez discussed the next steps in Linda's case. I listened, feeling a sense of closure, but also a deep sadness about James. Emily, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call, Martinez said as they prepared to leave. Thank you, officer. I appreciate everything you've done, I said, grateful for their support. As they left the room, I lay back on the pillows, staring at the ceiling. The relief of knowing Linda was caught was overwhelming, but the uncertainty about James left me feeling hollow. I knew it would take time to heal both physically and emotionally. But with Linda out of the picture, I had a chance to rebuild my life one step at a time. The day of the trial was nerve-wracking. I sat in the courtroom, my heart pounding, knowing I'd have to face Linda and tell the world what she had done. James was there too, but his face was a mask of doubt and confusion. He still didn't believe that his sister was guilty, even though the evidence showed she tried to poison him as well. As we waited for the trial to begin, James turned to me, his voice low and tense. Emily, I can't believe Linda would do something like this. It feels like you're just out for revenge. His words cut deep. I couldn't understand his blind love for Linda, even with all the evidence against her. When the trial started, the prosecutor laid out the case, detailing Linda's actions and the evidence we had gathered. I was called to the stand as a witness, my hand shaking as I took my seat. Emily, can you tell us about your suspicions and the evidence you found? The prosecutor asked, his voice calm and steady. I took a deep breath and began. I started noticing strange symptoms after moving in with James. His mother's health declined rapidly, and she had unexplained bruises. I found similar symptoms in myself later on. What did you find in your investigation? He prompted. I hired a private detective who discovered that Linda was in severe financial trouble. We found evidence that she had poisoned her husband and was likely trying to do the same to me and James for financial gain, I explained, my voice trembling. Did Linda ever say anything to you that indicated her guilt? The prosecutor asked. Yes. Just before I lost consciousness, she told me it was over for me, and that after I died, James would be next. She wanted everything we had, I said, my voice breaking with emotion. The defense lawyer stood up to cross-examine me, trying to cast doubt on my testimony. Emily, isn't it true that you and Linda never got along? Couldn't this be a personal vendetta? No, this isn't personal. This is about stopping a killer, I said firmly, refusing to be intimidated. As the trial went on, more witnesses testified, and the evidence piled up against Linda. The private detective presented his findings, and the medical examiner confirmed the presence of Warren in the exhumed bodies. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. When Linda was called to the stand, she initially denied everything, but the weight of the evidence was too much. Under pressure, she finally broke down and confessed. In the next court hearing, Linda looked at James with a mocking smile. Yes, I did it. I poisoned my husband, our mother, and I tried to poison you and Emily. I wanted it all, the money, the property. And look at you now, crying like a baby. James's face crumpled, tears streaming down his cheeks as he heard her words. Linda, how could you? She laughed, a cold, cynical sound that sent chills down my spine. You were always so gullible, James. You never saw what was right in front of you. The judge's gavel banged, calling for order in the court. Linda was convicted of double premeditated murder and the attempted murder of me and James. She was sentenced to a long prison term, her mocking smile fading as she was led away in handcuffs. After the trial, I made the hard decision to divorce James. There was just too much pain and betrayal to mend. I went through treatment to recover from the poisoning, and I heard through friends that James was also undergoing treatment because Linda had tried to poison him too. I was in my new apartment, trying to rebuild my life. It was small but cozy, a fresh start away from all the chaos. I focused on getting healthy and finding some peace. One afternoon, I was having coffee with my friend Sarah, who had been my rock through all of this. So how are you really doing, Emily? Sarah asked, looking at me with concern. I'm getting there, one day at a time. It's been rough, but I'm trying to move on, I replied, sipping my coffee. Have you heard from James? She asked, raising an eyebrow. Yeah, he's tried a few times to patch things up, I said, rolling my eyes. But I told him it's over. Good for you. After everything he put you through, you deserve better, she said, nodding in approval. I just can never get past the way he always sided with Linda over me. You can say all of your vows, but trust is the thing that counts in marriage. And when it's gone, you might as well leave, I said, feeling a twinge of pain. You're right. You need someone who has faith in you and never leaves your side, she said with a tight hand squeeze. I don't know, maybe it was just one of those days that I felt like going through some old photos and deciding what to keep, what to get rid of. They each reminded me of something, be it good or terrible. All that was heavily broken up with pings from my phone of messages smacking into us from James. It took me a little bit, but I finally did. Emily, I know how much pain I have caused you. Just one more conversation, please. The message read. I decided to be blunt with him. Instead, James, there's nothing more we can do or say. We both need to move on. Good luck to you, but I am done with this chapter. I hit send and experienced a weird mix of relief and it being over. Chapter IVI slammed the door on story of my life. At night I began to paint, finding a place of refuge and expression. This was good for me. It keeps my emotions grounded. I even signed up for a local book club and finally made several new friends. Each and every day became a moment toward recovery, as well as I was on a mission to develop a life of trust fund, happiness, and tranquility. It was part of my past and would always be with me, but the future had not been decided, ready to take on whatever was coming my way. But this time I would be stronger, wiser,